Thank you for joining us for this week's message at Crosswind Church. If you have any questions about this message or about Crosswind Church, please visit us at www.crosswindchurch.net, or you can email us at info@crosswindchurch.net.
What an awesome message you had to share with us at the end. Y'all, if you don't know what Be Rich is, let me just go ahead and tell you. We partnered here at Crosswind Church with about 75 other churches from all over the world to unleash waves of generosity out in our community, and it was an absolute blast to do that with you. Watching that video gets me fired up. I want to do it again, right? And so I wanted to take a moment with you and share with you all the results here. You got to see the results nationally from all the churches that had participated. 54,000 hours of service that have been unleashed in these communities. $7.1+ million that have been poured out in some of these organizations to help them go further, faster. And you got to be a part of that. Like, you got to help do that and show our communities that they matter to us, and that, more importantly, they matter to God, right? That's really cool. So here at Crosswind Church, I wanted to tell you, for our love call to action, one of the things we did that was actually measurable is we collected food to go to the Obion County Backpack Program. There are a couple hundred kids in our county that don't have enough food to eat over the weekends and over holidays, and so we asked you to take green bags or Walmart sacks, depending on what service you came to, and go out and collect food and bring it back in. And we at Crosswind Church raised 1,200 pounds of food to go to the backpack program. That's over half a ton. That's over half a ton of food. I know I moved it all. Okay, so we were able to do that. The next number, for our serve call to action, we sent you out into communities, out into our communities, to some great organizations around and asked you to serve. So you went to Feeding of 5,000, you went to Chimes for Charity, you went to Soul Food Cafe, you worked at UT Martin, and all over the place. And there's still more groups that have service opportunities coming. There's still more groups that have served and have not logged their hours yet. But as of right now, we have served at Crosswind Church 222 hours out in our community through Be Rich. Is that not cool? And then for our give call to action, you may remember a few weeks ago we asked every single one of you that attends our church, like Andy said, 100% participation. We gave 100% of it away. We asked everybody to give $39.95, one low cost of $39.95, and we knew that if we did that with our kind of average attendance, we would raise around $15,000. That was kind of what we thought. Was kind of the goal that we set up. As of this morning, and giving has kind of ended. So as of the Beers campaign in 2018, you at Crosswind Church gave $30,050. And 60 cents. I went and checked. Matt was like, is it 00? I was like, maybe. I don't know. And 60 cents. Okay, so the thing that I want you to know is we were able to take checks to Agape House, a crisis pregnancy center over in Martin. We were able to take checks to Life Beat, a crisis pregnancy center over in Tiptonville. We're going to build a fence. We're providing a fence for the Bridge of Northwest Tennessee at the Bridge House. We're going to do a new gym floor, refinish the gym floor, paint lines, like 3-point lines that they've never had on the floors at the Boys and Girls Club. And because you're so generous, we're going to redo the rec room too. New floors and all of that, and just kind of take care of that. And because you're so generous, well, don't tell them. But we're going to take a check here in the next couple weeks. As soon as we get all the books settled, we're going to take a check over to our friends at Trudy's Cafe and bless them a little bit as well. So thank you for participating. And next year we're just going to do it all again, right? Next year we're going to do it again. So if you missed out this year, there's still opportunity to serve, still opportunities to give. What we hope you do is find an organization that you love in Northwest Tennessee and not just volunteer during Be Rich, but keep going back and keep developing those relationships and keep being the hands and feet of Christ, and let them know that they matter to you and they matter to God. And because of that, there's hope, and it's such an exciting thing to be a part of. So look for Be Rich coming next year. But I'm super, super proud of you guys and pumped for what God has done and is doing. Now, as Matt mentioned, it's December. Can you believe it's December? Yesterday, I was standing out in my driveway and it was 60 degrees. I was like, it doesn't feel like December. Matt is excited about it. He moved from toboggan to just regular hat today to leave worship. So it was a good move for him. But it's December, and so Christmas is in full swing. And I was wondering, how many of you all, are there any of you maybe, that have already finished Christmas shopping? weirdos, right? Including my wife. Like, she's not only done, she has wrapped everything and it is under the tree. Like we had some folks over the other night, they were like, what, all these presents under the tree? I was like, yeah, but she's done. Like, that's it. Like, and you can't walk around the tree, but it's filled with presents, and so we're completely done. And what we do here at Christmas every year is we talk about the birth of Jesus Christ. We celebrate Jesus' birthday, and it's so appropriate, especially when we're children, to talk about Jesus' birthday, because that is what we're celebrating at Christmas time. The thing is, as we get a little bit older, our faith and our understanding of what is happening, what we're celebrating at Christmas, needs to evolve just a little bit into kind of adulthood. And so for the next few weeks, we want to talk about a theological term that kind of is one of the anchors of Christianity. In fact, if you are maybe not a believer and you're here today, you're going to hear us talk about this. You're going to know this is one of those weird things that Christians believe. And it just is, and it's hard for us to understand. It's the idea of the incarnation. That's really what we're celebrating at Christmas, the theological term incarnation. It's literally that God stepped out of heaven and became human, became God in flesh, and lived with us, and came to be with us. Does that make sense? So the incarnation is God, Jesus being fully God and fully man in one person. I don't know how it works. It's one of those crazy things that us Christians believe, but it's a hallmark of our faith and one of those anchors that we kind of base it on. And it's spelled out so clearly for us in the Gospel of Matthew, at the very beginning of Matthew, and we're going to read this verse every week throughout the month of December. But Matthew chapter 1, beginning of verse 22, Matthew records this. All of this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. That's what Christmas is about. It's about God stepping out of heaven and coming to be with us. And you want to know what's super cool about it? Is that He is still here with us. That's one of those things that's so easy for us to say. And there's certain times in life where it's easy for us to kind of understand that. So like, if you watched the SEC Championship game last night, you get to see that guy at the end of the football game, and they're giving the talks and the interviews, and the guy that goes, listen, I just trusted Jesus. Jalen Hurts did a great job for Alabama, and Alabama fan, but he did a good job, right? And at the interviews, man, I just trusted Jesus and took with it. God was with me, right? That's the gist of what he was saying. God was with me. I always think it's easy for the winner to say that. Right? It's easy when things are good and you won the game to say that God was with me. But what if we were to go to the other side and ask Georgia's quarterback? Right? Did you feel like God was with you? And the answer may be, maybe not. Right? You see, the thing is that the idea, the understanding that God is with us, it's something that is easy for us to believe. It's something that's easy for us to latch onto when things are good. When there's plenty of presents under the tree. And when everybody's healthy and happy, and when we have jobs and the bank account is full, there's plenty of food in the pantry. That's times where we can just go, man, thank God, bless God, God is with me. But when things get dark, when things are a little bit tough, and when there's not enough, paycheck at the end of the month, and when the objects and the obstacles that are in front of you seem looming and seem large, and you don't know exactly how you're going to overcome them or how you're going to move past them, or you're going through an incredibly difficult time, and you just kind of go, listen, I know that God is with me, but it sure doesn't feel like God is with me. You may have heard pastors say, like, the longest 18 inches you can travel is from knowing to actually believing. I think it's easy for us to know in those difficult times that God is with us, but to not really know it, to not really believe it, to not really feel it. When the night kind of comes kind of caving in around you. For me, in particular, those times that are hard for me are at night. It's kind of weird. I don't worry about things during the daytime, but at nighttime, I'll worry about stuff. Some things that matter, some things that don't matter. Last night, for instance, I woke up at 2:30, could not go back to sleep. My heart was racing, my anxiety was through the roof or whatever. And here are the things that I think about. I think about things that matter. I think about church. I think about you all, and I pray for you guys. And I think about what I've got to do today, and I think about the service this morning and all those things that are good. And then I start thinking about relationships and maybe things that I said that were not right or wrong or how I didn't handle that situation correctly. And then my heart starts racing a little bit, and I'm really not going back to sleep. And I've got this weird fear that like the Christmas lights on my tree are going to catch my Christmas tree on fire. And so I'm laying in bed this morning at 2:30 going, I bet my tree is on fire right now, right? And a little be lights. Like, I don't know, maybe the cord got cut or something. I don't know. Like, I had this fear, and so I started thinking about that, and then it's like, did I put the dogs up? Is the dog integrated? Or is the dog running around eating stuff and pooping all over the place? Like, do I need to check on that? Did somebody just move upstairs and the girls up, or is somebody in my house? Do I need to go walk through my house, and all of a sudden, I'm gone and I'm outside? Like, when it gets dark for me, those are the times when it's hard for me. I can lay in bed and I can pray, and I can say, God, you're with me, and I know you're with me, and God, please calm my heart, and I can pray those things and do those things. For some reason, it's just so incredibly hard to move from here to here. And maybe you're not literally in nighttime right now, but maybe it feels like your life is in the dark in the night right now. And the holidays just seem to exacerbate that, if that's you, right? If you're struggling with something, or if there's an anxiety about something, the holidays seem to just make everything amplified. Maybe it's your first holiday without a loved one. Maybe it's your first holiday after the divorce. Maybe it's your first holiday by yourself, or maybe it's just, there's not enough money to buy all the stuff that you know you need to buy and go where you need to go, and this isn't working right and that's not working right. You have to navigate tricky family situations, and all of those things kind of loom in, and you get a pastor that stands up on stage and says, God is with you, and you go, yeah, sure doesn't feel like it. Sure is kind of hard. So for the next few weeks, what we're going to talk about is what it looks like to live in the reality of God being with us. What it looks like to actually work our way through those deserts and through those valleys. What it feels like to work our way through the storms with a God that calms the storm. And as we work through that, maybe there's some things we can learn about ourselves, and maybe there's some things that can help you as you navigate those difficult times in your life. So today I want to start with a story, but before I get to the story, I have to tell you some background. So in Genesis chapter 12, Genesis is the first book of the Bible. It records kind of creation and some of those famous stories that you read about in children's storybook Bibles. So there's Noah and the Ark and the Tower of Babel. And in Genesis chapter 12, God comes to a man named Abram. This is before he was Abraham. And he said, Abram, I'm going to change your name to Abraham, and you're going to be the father of a great nation. This is weird because Abraham was old, and his wife was old, and they hadn't had any kids. He said, you're going to have a great nation. And it says that Abraham believed God, and so God gave him a son, Isaac. And then Isaac had a son named Jacob, and Jacob had 12 sons, one of which was Joseph. Joseph, through a series of very unfortunate events, ends up in Egypt, and all of his family comes with him down there, where they grow into a great nation that's made up of 12 tribes, each one coming from one of the sons of Jacob. But they grow into such a big group of people that Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, got nervous, so he put them in captivity. After several years, God shows up again, and he talks to another man, this time a guy by the name of Moses. He says to Moses, you're going to have to go to Egypt, and you're going to have to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. 10 plagues later, the parting of the Red Sea, the nation of Israel is in the wilderness of Sinai, right? They had just seen God do some amazing works there. But they're now in the wilderness, and they don't have any food to eat, and they don't have any water to drink. And they grumble against God, so God gives them water to drink. He makes it rain manna down from heaven. Manna is like this little bread-like substance. We think it tastes like honey, not exactly right. I always picture it raining croutons. Is kind of what I picture. And then he gave them quail to eat for meat, and they would go out every day, and God just provided for them for their needs. He took them to Mount Sinai, where he gave them the law. He gave them some boundaries in which they should live in. And he took them right up to the Jordan River, right up to the boundary of the land that he had promised to give Abraham, the land that he had promised to give Jacob, the land that he had promised to give Isaac. They're now standing on the banks of the Jordan River, looking over into it. And they know that there's going to be a battle coming for them. They know that there's going to be difficulties. They know there's going to be setbacks. But it's okay. It's okay, isn't it? Because we have Moses. It's okay because Moses, who led us out of Egypt, is here with us. And he certainly will lead us over into this land that God promised. And in the middle of that, Moses walks out to the people of Israel. And we're going to read from Deuteronomy chapter 31. We're starting verse 1. This is what Moses says. Then Moses went out and he spoke all of these words to Israel. I am now 120 years old, and I am no longer able to lead you. The Lord has said to me, you shall not cross the Jordan. I read that and I go, he's 120. The man gets to retire, right? Like surely the Social Security benefits are going to check in, and Moses can just kind of go out to pasture, so to speak, whatever it may be. It's time for Moses to step back. But Moses has gotten old, and he's led these people. He's got great wisdom. Some think that age was an age of great wisdom. That was like one of those hallmarks that people kind of passed at that point in time. And so Moses, great wisdom, he's been their leader, and he's led them through so many other things. And now, as they stand on the precipice of something that's amazing, as they stand on the verge of walking into what it was that God has promised them, God is calling them into obedience, and he's having their leader stand up and say, I'm not going to be able to lead you the way that I used to lead you. I'm not going to be able to go with you where it is that you go. Last week I told you that when I went to college, I drove a 1984 Honda Accord. When I went to college, it had dents on both sides and a dent in the front. What I didn't tell you is that about 3 months into my college experience, that car absolutely died, went kaput, because that's what happens when you don't put oil in the engine. Lesson learned, okay? And so I got a new car. My parents were so gracious to me. They gave me a new car. I drove a Saturn SL1. They made those here in Tennessee, and they made them out of Tupperware. You know those cars? Saturn SL1. That was what it was. And so I was driving that as a stick shift, and I felt pretty cool. It was much cooler. It was a step up than my 1984 Honda Accord with dents all the way around it. But mind you, I'm 18 years old, and I'm in the city, 250 miles, 4 hours away from my hometown, and I have met about 4 people since I've been at Sanford. They're my roommate and like the people that live down the hall from me. That's all I know. Like that's it. I haven't met anybody else. I didn't go to school with somebody from my hometown. Like I was alone there. And so we decided, me and my 4 friends decided that on one night we were going to go to the movies. Now the movie theater was at the Galleria Mall in Birmingham. If you've been following the news, yes, there was a shooting there over Black Friday. God bless Galleria Mall. Okay, so anyway, we decided to go to Galleria Mall. There's a movie theater there, and I said to my friends, I got this new car. Let's pile in the Saturn and let's head on over. And so we did. We head on over and we pull into, it was a late movie. It was 10 o'clock movie or so. And we pull into the parking lot. We pull into the parking lot. On the dashboard of that Saturn, the little battery light came on. And I looked at it and I went, noted. Right? And got out and we went in and we watched the movie. Well, you may know, we came back out to the car, and we got in, everybody piles in the car again, and I get in my new car, my new-to-me car, that's so much a step up from the 1984 Honda Accord, and it will not crank. What I would find out later is that the alternator had gone dead. It had drained the battery on the drive over to the Galleria, and now about a 30-minute drive away from the campus that I'm living on, with no vehicle, and everyone I know in town is with me. Now this is it's not pre-cell phone, this is just pre-Jeremy having a cell phone, right? You remember those days? So I'm like, what in the world am I going to do? So I walk back to the movie theater, it's now midnight, and I asked to use their phone, and I called my dad and woke him up. And he answers the phone, and he calls me Jer. He goes, Jeremy, you okay, Jer? You okay? And I go, yeah, Dad, I'm okay. I'm at the Galleria, can't see a movie, the car's dead, it won't start. To which he said, what do you want me to do? I was like, well, normally, Dad, when stuff happens with my car, I call you and you tell me what to do. You fix it. And he's like, Jeremy, I'm 4 hours away from you. It's midnight. And I said, well, Dad, I don't really know. I'm borrowing this phone from the movie theater. Like I don't really even know who to call. Everybody I know is here. And he said these words, and I'll never forget it. He said, well, I guess we'll figure out something. Good night. Now, he may have said something like, I love you, or something like that. I don't remember any of that. But there was this moment in my adult life now where I realized that my dad is not going to be able to lead me like he used to. Our relationship had changed, and now I was having to take more responsibility. Now I was having to figure some things out on my own. He wasn't going to be there when things went wrong to come and kind of fix things for me. And there's this moment standing in the movie theater at the River Chase Galleria in Birmingham, Alabama, where this terror kind of comes over your heart like, oh my goodness, I guess I have to figure out something. And so when I read this passage, I think about the Israelites and what they had already gone through and all the issues that they had had. And now their leader, the individual that had brought them out of Egypt, took them through the Red Sea, God had used him to provide in battle. He had used him to provide for their food and their water. And now that man is saying, look, I can't lead you like I did before. I'm not going to go with you. into the promised land. Can you imagine how scared they are? Have you ever been there? Like where God calls you into some kind of obedience? God calls you to do something, and you know it's so clear. God has said, I need you to go here. I need you to do this. I need you to follow me and obey me in this way. And you look at that and you go, oh my goodness, I don't know that I can do that. I don't know that I've got that in me. I don't know that I know what to do. And you see the obstacle in front of you, like the Israelites saw the obstacle in front of you, and you're just terrified because your leader that had led you to this point now is saying, I can't go with you. But God's going to provide a way. Look what he says next in verse 3. It says, the Lord God himself, this is still Moses talking, the Lord God himself will cross over ahead of you, and he will destroy the nations before you, and you will take possession of their land. And Joshua also will cross over ahead of you, as the Lord had said. And the Lord will do to them what he did to Sihon and to Og and the kings of the Amorites, whom he destroyed along with their land. The Lord will deliver them to you, and you must do to them all that I have commanded you. So God's saying, listen, it's going to be a battle, but I'm going to go ahead of you, right? And I've got a new leader for you. His name is Joshua. You may know Josh. He's been with y'all for the 40 years that you've been in the wilderness. He's going to be the one that's going to go ahead of you. He's going to go with you, and he's going to lead you. Have you ever been a part of an organization where the boss leaves and he's replaced with a new boss, or she's replaced with a new boss? You ever been a part of an organization where something changes in the structure, and now the person that you're reporting to is different than the person that you've been reporting to? Or maybe if you've been in the church world long enough, you've been in the church situation where a pastor leaves and another pastor comes, or a worship guy leaves and another worship guy comes, or whatever it may be, and you look at the new leader, and the first thing that you do, just naturally inside of you, is you compare him or her to the old leader. There's a comparison. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us that the Israelites compare. I'm just kind of going on some human nature here and saying they probably did. I imagine they might have looked over at Moses and been like, okay, Moses, let's talk for just a minute. Like, God did some pretty cool stuff from you. Like, that whole thing with the Egypt and the plagues, like, that was really cool. And that God used that to bring us out. And then there was this parting of the sea. And, like that was kind of neat. Like fish or whatever on either side. At least that's what the story Bible's always had it, right? And he got us away. And then the croutons from heaven, like, that's such a cool trick, God. He did that through Moses. Is God going to be able to do that through Joshua? We know about Moses, but how does Joshua going to compare? I mean, I know that Joshua was one of the spies, and I know that he had faith in God, but I'm just not sure. And then the last sentence that Moses just said has got to be just a little bit terrifying, doesn't it? The last sentence is where Moses says, hey, by the way, you're going to have to do all the things I commanded you. He says that to the people. Now you have a responsibility. You have something that I've called you to. There's something that you have to do. See, that's bigger stakes than we've dealt with before. That's something that's a little bit more intimidating, isn't it? See, because as followers of Jesus Christ, those that are followers of Jesus Christ, we know that God has called us to a purpose. We know that God has called us to significance. We know that God has called us to be a warrior for His kingdom and to impact this world for His glory. We know that God has called us to be a reconciler, that God has called us to be faithful with our finances, that God has called us to parent in such a way. We know, watch this word, that God has called us for more. And we now know that there's a responsibility that we have. And if we're honest, if you're honest, if I'm honest, it's just a little bit terrifying. It's just a little bit terrifying. So oftentimes we look at what it is that God has called us to, and we stay on the sidelines because we're not convinced that we have the ability, or that God has the ability, or that our leaders have the ability to get us to the place that God has called us. And as if God and Moses knew that was going to be their objection, he speaks a word of encouragement to them in the next verse. He starts out by saying this: be strong and courageous. Be strong. Courageous. There's an indoor pool in Coleman, Alabama. One year, Emma wanted to have a pool party. The problem is she's born in February. So we had to go figure out if this pool, Coleman Aquatic Center, would host parties. Sure enough, they did. And so it was really neat. They had this indoor pool, and they had this kind of like whirlpool kind of thing. And the party rooms, we invited, like 30 of our friends, I guess, however many. There's a lot of kids there, right? And their parents. And so we just had a good time playing in the pool. And at this particular pool, there was a high dive. There's a high dive at the pool, right? And so I did what guys, and in particular what dads do. I began to taunt and shame the children until they jumped off the high dive. This is what you do. I would challenge the little boy's masculinity, like, "Oh, you're a man, go jump off," that kind of stuff. Really healthy things to say to kids. And one by one, they'd kind of jump off the high dive. And then at some point, it was probably another parent, but it may have been a 6-year-old, looked at me and said, "Why don't you go jump off the high dive?" And my mouth had already gotten me in this position where I realized I'm going to have to go do it, right? And so I go, "Fine, I'll go jump off the high dive." And I go and I climb up the ladder. Now here's the thing about heights that you don't realize. When you're on the ground, it doesn't look that high. But when you get up there, it's high, right? And you walk to the edge of that diving board looking down however many thousands of feet, right, it is, to the water. And there's clouds that are like moving below you, and that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden there's something inside of your brain that just kind of goes, "Don't do that." Like, that's a terrible idea, right? But I challenge all these other kids, and they're all watching me, right? And so there comes this moment where you just have to have enough courage to take the leap, right? You just have to have enough courage to take the leap. And when you do, look, it's exhilarating for a split second. There's free fall, and then there's water. And you go so deep down in the water, you can swim back up. And there's a relief, and there's joy, and it's really quite remarkable. If you haven't done it, you should definitely try it, right? And the thing that I didn't really understand until I did it is that you don't get to experience the joy of going off the high dive until you get enough courage to jump off the side. And the thing is this is so cool. See, God has called the Israelites to more. God has called the Israelites to a great promise. But they'll never experience the joy of the conquest. They'll never experience the joy of living in the promised land unless they're willing to take the jump in courage. And God has called you to more. God has put in front of you, right, a call to obedience. And you don't even begin to understand the joy that comes when you follow Jesus in obedience and you live a life in obedience to Him, and you're looking at it and you're terrified. And I'm telling you, you'll never understand the joy unless you're willing to jump off the dive. Unless you're willing to take that leap of courage. And so God begins by saying, "Listen, nation Israel, be strong and courageous." He also says, "Do not be afraid or terrified because of them." I love all the commandments in Scripture where we're commanded to not be afraid. Because it kind of implies that there's like a switch somewhere in our bodies. That like when we're scared, we can just go, "Oh, don't be afraid." Switch. Okay, now I'm not afraid. But it doesn't work like that, right? That's not how it works. In fact, in October, I got to sit in a kind of a meeting where they described trauma and the way your brain works, and it talked about the lizard brain, which is responsible for freeze, fight, or flight, and the limbic system, which is kind of the emotional center of the brain that handles things like hunger and fear and anger. And then there's the prefrontal cortex, which kind of separates us from lower animals, that allows us to reason and uses logic and those sorts of things. And it says that when you're spiked with a trauma, or you're spiked with something that causes fear or anxiety in you, what happens is your prefrontal cortex goes offline. And it stops working. Because your brain just knows we've got to shut that down, we just have to survive. And so it runs only on emotion. This is why if you're driving down the road, right, and a car nearly plows into you, there's a moment of time, in fact for some of you it's a long moment of time, where you're completely irrational. Right? And this is why when someone is irrational or when someone is emotional, it's very difficult to battle that emotion with truth in that moment. Right? Because the prefrontal cortex is offline. Some studies have said that your prefrontal cortex goes offline for 20 minutes when a trauma occurs. No logic, no reason. It's all emotion. It's all survival. It's the way your brain kind of works, right? So it's kind of funny that we read Scripture here, and God just says, "Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't be terrified." Switch, because it's not a switch for us. right? It's something that's much deeper than that. And in this, I think maybe sometimes we miss, or I don't want to say we miss this. I think for me, it's more than just not being afraid. See, one of the things we told our girls from the time they were little is that it's okay to be afraid. It's not okay to walk away. It's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to allow that fear to paralyze you. You see, I have no doubt that the Israelites were afraid when they went into the promised land, but they still win, right? So how is it that we can be afraid and still walk in obedience with God? I'm so glad you asked. Look what he says in the very next part. Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid or be terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. See, you don't have to be afraid because God is going to go with you. Not just ahead of you, not just fight for you. He's going to go with you. In Alabama, where we lived before we moved here, the county that we lived in had a lot of caves, like just natural caves. And some of them were like state parks, and some of them were just there, right? And so like people in our county would go spelunking, like for fun. I had a friend named Ken, and he grew up in that area as a kid. He said we would leave on Friday and go into some of these caves and camp all night long. Our parents had no idea where we were all weekend. I was like, that is terrifying. And he said, one night, I want to take you to see a cave. I want to take you to see Brian's cave. And I was like, okay. So we go at night. I don't know why, because it's dark in the cave, whether it's daytime or not. He said, bring a headlamp, bring a flashlight. And I got to be honest with you, when you're standing there at the mouth of this cave, and it's not a very big cave. I mean, don't picture like Tower of Grayskull. Like it's big enough you can kind of shimmy down in, and it opens up inside. Like you look at that, and inside your brain you go, no, like that's crazy. Do you know what happens in caves? Have you seen horror movies? Like there's no trip to a cave that ends well in a movie, right? It's just terrible. I don't really understand, but I felt like I could go and I could overcome that fear and I could move forward in the midst of that fear. Why? Because my friend Ken knew the cave and he was going with me. He knew the way. He had prepared, and if something bad happened, he knew what it was that we needed to do to get out of that situation. God isn't telling you that your fear is necessarily evil or bad or that you have to kind of dismiss it completely. He's saying you've got to make it to where your fear doesn't cause you to not move. Where your fear doesn't keep you from walking in obedience. And you can walk forward in obedience with me even though you're scared because I promise to go with you. And here's the best part. And I will never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I'm not going away. I'm right here. Through all of it. I'm right here in the storms. I'm right here in the wilderness. I'm right here by you. And Abigail was little. From time to time she would get scared. She'd have a nightmare. There'd be a storm that came through. She would wander into our room, crawl up into bed with me and JB. She was fine to go back to sleep as long as she could put a hand on us. And she would lay there as a little toddler and just stick her hand and just touch my back. And when she knew that I was there, she could sleep and she could rest and she could find peace. Because she knew Daddy wasn't going to leave her. Daddy wasn't going to abandon her. And he was going to be with her, even though she was afraid. When you are experiencing obstacles that are bigger than you, when you're in the midst of storms and chaos and trials and setbacks that you inevitably experience when you begin to walk in obedience to God, you can continue to walk in the midst of your fear because God is with you. Sometimes people will say, Jared, how do you hear God? How do you know God? Wouldn't it be nice if God just put up billboards and told us what to do? Or if God screamed at us or spoke to us in an audible voice? Jeremy, it seems like God's always whispering. Why is God whispering when he talks to me? Like, when I want to know that he's there, why is it that the strain so hard to hear? Because he's whispering. And I wish that he would yell. I wish that he would just make it so obvious. Why is it, Jeremy, that God whispers? He whispers because he's close. He whispers because he's close. He will never leave you. And he will never forsake you. experience the exhilaration of walking in obedience with Him. And going to places that only He could call you. And accomplishing things that only He could accomplish in you. And I know it's scary. And I know there's questions. And I know that it's hard. But don't allow that to move you to the sidelines. Because when God calls us to walk in obedience, He goes with you. So be brave. Be fearless. Because when He calls you, He goes with you. So be brave. Be fearless. So here's the question. What is it that God has called you to? What is the next level of obedience that He's asking you to step into? Is it to fully give your life to Him and trust Him with your eternity? Is it to say, I want to make you the boss of my life, I want to follow you, I want to worship you and you alone. I want to come to the end of myself and come into the fullness of a relationship with you. And you put it off and you put it off and you're scared. You don't know how your family's going to respond. You're afraid of getting in front of people, whatever it may be. You're afraid of having a conversation with me or someone else. And you just, I put it off and I put it off and I put it off. I'm telling you. When God calls you to a level of obedience like that, He goes with you. So be fearless and brave. Be fearless and brave. And if you want to experience the joy of walking in obedience with Christ, you're going to have the courage to step off the diving board. Maybe it's an act of faith like baptism. And you're terrified about making a video, or, is the water going to be warm, or is Jeremy going to drop me, or whatever it is, right? You've come up with a million reasons not to do it. When God calls you to another level of obedience, He's going to go with you. So be brave and be fearless. Maybe it's with your finances. Maybe you're spending a lot more than you're bringing in. Maybe there's not enough paycheck at the end of every month, and you know that if I sit down and have a conversation with my spouse about this, or to sit down with my checkbook and figure it out, like it's going to be a struggle, and maybe I have to sacrifice some things. It may mean that I don't get what I want. I don't get what I want every time. It may mean that we have to kind of cut the corners around Christmas time, or whatever it may be. And you're scared. Maybe it's because God's calling you to faithfulness, to be a consistent giver here at Crosswind Church. I don't really know how God's going to work it out or what He's going to do. I'm telling you, jump off the diving board. Write the check. Be brave. Be fearless. Maybe it's a holy discontent that God's put inside of you, right? Maybe if you've seen suffering around the world or suffering in your community and you've looked at it and said, somebody should do something about that, and you felt God kind of tapping you on the shoulder going, hey, why don't you do something about that? You don't have a platform, and you're not well connected, and you don't know where it is you're supposed to go or what it is you're supposed to do, and you don't think you're big enough or strong enough to pull it off. God says, but I'm going to go with you. And I'm not going to leave you. And if you want to experience the exhilaration of following me in obedience, then you're going to have the courage to step off. Be fearless. Be brave. Whatever it is that God's calling you to today, would you be willing to look past the obstacles, look past the giants in the land, look past the leadership changes and all the decisions you're going to have to make, look past the uncertainty, and then just a sheer trust of your will, take a step forward into obedience to what it is that He's called you to do. Because when God calls you to obedience, He goes with you. So be brave and be fearless. In just a minute, we're going to close the service down. And some of you, your first step that you're going to have to take into obedience is to go and have a conversation with someone. And maybe that someone is across the room. Maybe that someone is in our starting point room. Maybe that someone is me or Jody. I want you to know when we close this service, people are going to be moving all over the place to go get kids and go home and go grab lunch. I'm telling you, take that opportunity. Say, God, I don't know what it is. I don't know what you want me to do maybe. I don't know how we're going to accomplish it, but I'm going to take a step. I'm going to take a courageous step, and I'm going to feel the exhilaration of walking in obedience to you, because, God, I believe that when you call me to obedience, you go with me. So I can be strong. I can be courageous. I can be brave. I can be fearless. And can you imagine what the world would do with a man or a woman or a child that's completely sold out to walking in obedience to Christ? I'm telling you, the world has yet to see. The world has yet to see what God can do through His people, through His church, that are willing to say, in spite of my fear, I'm going to be fearless and I'm going to be brave. Let's pray. God, I'm so thankful that you have called us into obedience, that you've called us to more, that you've called us to walk with you. How exciting is that? To be a part of what it is that you're doing in this world. And so, God, whatever it is you called the individuals in this room to, whatever more you've called them to, whether that's to give their life and put their trust in you for the very first time, whether that's to follow through with baptism or to be faithful with their finances or to serve the world in a new and exciting way, to serve our community in a way that shows them the love of Christ, to mend relationships, to fix marriages, to end addictions, to break down strongholds, whatever that may be here today that you've called us into, God, we confess that we're scared. We confess that we don't have all of the details and all the answers. We know it's going to be hard. We know there's going to be setbacks. We know there's going to be battles, and we know that we may even lose a few of them. But God, we will not allow our fear to sideline us. We will not allow uncertainty or selfishness to sideline us. Because we know that when you call us into that kind of obedience, you're going to go with us. So God, we're going to be brave. We're going to be fearless. God, when we come to the end of our strength, you're going to fill us with yours. Now, God, do in us what you will. Move us to the next level of obedience. Thank you for Jesus. Because of him, we can come to you and ask you for this help. We love you. We praise you. We praise things in his name. Amen. Amen. Thank you guys so much for coming. See you next week.